Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you as always from the south of Germany, from Munich. Today is Saturday, it's the 2nd of November and it's a long weekend, which is amazing. So it feels like it's a Sunday already and it isn't, and yeah, I'm just so excited about that. Anyway, this is not a weekend podcast. This is about knitting. So today I have some finished objects to show you guys, some works in progress, no acquisitions, I think. No, I've been good, you guys. And I've also brought out a couple of pairs of socks because those of you who have been watching for a long time remember I used to do sort of sock yarn reviews or just reviews of how socks have worn over time every now and then, and you guys always really enjoyed it, so I've brought out a couple of pairs and I will just tell you how they've worn and washed and all of that, and maybe it'll be in this video, maybe if it gets too long I will just split into two and there will be two videos, but you'll be able to figure that all out, I'm sure. If you're watching for the first time, welcome. I really hope that you will enjoy this podcast. Thank you so much for checking it out. And if you're coming back, thank you ever so much for being a regular viewer of the podcast. I should reintroduce myself very quickly because I do get a lot of questions and I realize that not everyone, I hope no one, will go back and watch all the old episodes because that would be embarrassing, so let's not do that. So to cut it short, like I said, my name is Julia. I live in Munich with my now husband, which is still crazy. It's been like, I don't know, a couple of months. It's been like 8 months, maybe. Can't believe it. I'm still shocked about that. Still don't get being referred to as someone's wife. That's just crazy. Anyways, it's just the two of us. We're living in an apartment in the city, pretty much in the city. I do work full-time, which seriously cuts into my knitting time. I mean, I've kind of told Kai that really to solve my knitting problem and to get through my stash, I need to work less, but that's not really happening. I'm not seriously thinking about that. Anyhow, when I'm not working or sleeping, I'm usually knitting. I have dabbled into sewing, but didn't really like it. Probably also wasn't very good at it. I do crochet blankets, but that's all the crochet that I do. I do love spinning. I have an e-spinner, which I love. I actually haven't brought any spinning to show you in a while, but I am spinning every now and then. Again, it is just a time issue. Yeah, and because a couple of people have asked me recently, where does my strange accent come from, / how do you know English, / what's the backstory there. German is my native language, and I grew up, as every German does, getting English education pretty early in school, and I've always just really liked languages. So I think I was 14 when I spent a couple of weeks in the UK, in Eastbourne, and came back and told my parents, okay, now I want to go to Australia for a year, and my parents pretty much killed me. And after months and months of convincing them, they let me stay in Australia by myself for about almost a year. So I went to school there and all of that, and came back with the most hilarious Aussie accent. And then over the years of still kind of keeping up with the language, but working with a lot of people from different, like from the US, from the UK, from different places, all kinds of accents. Somehow it's turned out into this sort of jumbly English mess of a dialect, but it works, so that's the backstory there. Alright, let's go into some knitting. I have some finished objects, you guys, finally. So first of all, let's talk about the Starflake Mystery Knit Along, which is not a mystery anymore, but if you don't want to see it, please, still applies. Look away, come back in a couple of minutes. So I finished my Starflake Mystery Shawl by Stephen West. And let's try to show it to you without ruining my microphone setup and all of that. It's huge. And that is pretty much it. How cool is it? I really like how it's turned out. I think this is one of my favorite designs that Stephen West has done. I just love the bold and graphic colors. It's a very sort of geometrical design with lots of different elements, and I just love it. I love his 2-color shawls, and this is definitely one of my favorites, so I'm extremely happy that I did this mystery knit along. It could have gone either way. There are some of his mystery knit alongs in the past where I didn't like the shawls as much, but this one was definitely a success for me, so I'm very happy to have this done. And I haven't worn this yet, but I think the shape will be really, really handy to wear because it's not really like a flat crescent shape, but it's almost more like this, really. So it should just like hug around your neck beautifully. So I'm very happy with that. So happy to have it done. Yeah, I did the shorter version in terms of the edging, and then did the 2-color I-cord bind off. If you're doing that, it took me a while to figure out how to do it best with changing the yarns all the time. So I ended up holding my yarns as if I were doing just stranded colorwork. And then it went a lot faster, and I'm just so happy with this shawl. The yarn is Malabrigo sock. The grayish color is called Pearl, and the pinkish color is again called either Light of Love or Love of Light. Can't remember, can't find the tag, I'm sorry, but I'm sure you can find it. So it's done. I'm super happy with it, and I'm also very happy that it's done because, oh my gosh, this was a lot and a lot of knitting. There were so many freaking stitches on this thing. So it's a lovely project. Oops, you can see where I've woven my ends. Oops, let's show you the nicer side. It's a lot of knitting. So it's definitely, you need to be aware of that. I do have some yarn left over, so I didn't quite use 4 skeins, but I think I probably use at least around 300 grams of yarn, so it's still a sizable project. Next up, I have another finished object, you guys, and those of you who watched last week will laugh because last week I showed this yarn that I was about to turn into a hat for Kai. It's done. So what should I say about this? The yarn, which is kind of blowing out, is a Woolfolk Snow. Woolfolk Snow. The colorway is in my project pages. I forgot to mention that at the top of the episode. We have a group on Ravelry, which is linked right underneath this video, and I always also link my project pages, and that is where you can find all of the information. So if you have questions, who is the designer, what's the name of the pattern, what yarn did you use, what needle size, or sometimes it's hard to find patterns on Ravelry because people seem to name their patterns the same thing sometimes. So for example, I think there's like at least 14 or 15 different robin patterns. So if you want to check it out, always just check my project pages, and they will have the colorway for this. And I knit the Shepherd Toque. Is that how you pronounce it? Again, good example of my project pages. I can't remember the designer either, but it's just a very simple hat. Usually I don't buy patterns for hats, but with this one, it comes in I think 3 different weights, which I thought was really smart. It was exactly what Kai wanted in terms of the shape, and one of the samples was knit in exactly this yarn, so it just gave me sort of an idea as to how many stitches to cast on, what needle size to use and all of that. So I decided to buy the pattern, and what it does is it has a double brim. So you can see here it's stretchy on the inside, and then it's just a double stockinette brim on the outside, which just makes for such a nice finish. And of course you get a lot of extra warmth this way. I think the pattern asks you to put in like waste yarn or something, or lifeline, and then sew it up. I didn't do that. I just cast on and then folded it over and just knit through both my regular stitches and the inside to get this seam and not have to seam it up in the end. I also made the just plain knitting section a little bit longer because I just wanted to go with the whatever seemed to fit Kai's head, because you know he is super picky. And I also changed it increases and decreases. So really I changed the entire thing. But if you want a good starting point and a probably very good pattern, check out the Shepherd Toque. And I have written out some of my modifications in my pages as well. So this is done. I'm not going to put it on because my hair looks kind of human today, so I'm not going to mess that up. But it is the softest hat, and I love this double brim. I think I'm going to use this for a ton of hats in the future. And I may actually make myself the exact same hat, with the one exception that I will make this brim longer. I wasn't sure how long I could make this double brim because I only had 50 grams of yarn. In hindsight, I could have made it longer, but I just followed the pattern, and I hope that Kai will like it. He is the pickiest person to knit hats for. If he doesn't like it in terms of the length or anything, I will literally just rip it out again and add some length, but I think it should be okay. The reason why I changed the decreases as well is that the pattern gives you a bit of like a pointy top, and I wasn't sure if Kai would want that. I thought it was actually really cute, so I may do that for myself, but for him, I think he wants it as plain and as beanie-like as possible, so I just changed the decreases. Why do I keep saying increases? I have no idea. Anyways, this is done. I'm very happy about it, and oh my gosh, it is so soft. I kind of don't want to give this away. And sad side story. You may remember the hat that I finished, I think, 2 episodes ago that I knit for myself, the purple hat that I knit out of the Uncommon thread in their MCN base. It turns out I can wear pretty much anything, but not on my head. So I once in the past knitted a hat with a strand of mohair, and oh my gosh, that was terrible. That made me so itchy. And this time I thought a merino cashmere nylon should be fine on my head, right? Nope, it's itchy. And I'm so sad about it because it was a really fancy yarn. I love the hat. I love how it looks. But I really need to check what kind of yarns I can wear on my forehead. So I may actually try wearing this, and if it's a good fit. I really need to be more picky with what I put on my head, apparently. I have a yarn out of John Arbin Knit by Numbers, which is I think it's just a merino. Is it a Falkland? I'm not sure. It's a really, really soft woolen yarn, and that I have no problem with. So that's at least one yarn that I know I will be able to make more hats out of. But that was a little bit sad. All right, that is it in terms of my finished objects. So let's move into some works in progress. So first up, let's talk about the never-ending cardigan, which is the Earnest Cardigan by Joji Locatelli. I'm getting a little bit sick of this project. I will try to show it to you without losing all of my stitches. There we go. Podcasting is hard, you guys. So this is the cardigan. It's a top-down cardigan with like a shawl collar, and then I have separated for the sleeves, and I'm now just working down the body of the garment. You can see this top stitch marker is where I was last time I showed this to you, and I put another stitch marker in here yesterday. And if I'm following the pattern, if I want the length of the pattern, I will need another 4 inches from this stitch marker until I can start the ribbing. So I have made some progress on it, but I don't know. This is pretty slow going, considering it's a lot of like seat stitch and cables, so you need to pay attention. So I still love it. It's still a pattern where you don't need to constantly watch the pattern, because for me at least I thought it was very, very memorizable. But it just does take a while. I'm using 3mm needles as well, which of course explains some of it, and there's like a million stitches. Yeah, so that's where I am on that. I still love it. I think I'm going to love the finished cardigan. I've tried it on a couple of times and it fits amazingly, which is great because I find it quite hard to knit cardigans that fit well and don't at some point fall off your shoulders or just look really weird on your shoulders. And this seems to be working very well. Originally I wanted to make this quite a bit longer than the original, but now I'm starting to think maybe I won't. What I am planning to do though is, instead of, Hohi does a pretty short ribbing. I think it's like a 1x1 rib. But I want a really wide ribbing panel at the bottom. So I'm still just debating on how I'm going to do that, if I'm just going to do a 2x2 rib or maybe even a bigger rib than that. But I want a proper long ribbing, which I think will go a little bit faster also to knit than the seat stitch. And I think it would look really, really nice with the sort of style that I have in mind. So that's where I am with this thing. Yeah, I was so close to starting the ribbing today, and then I'm like, oh, I just need a couple more rows. I do want this to be a little bit longer. I don't want this to be too short after all this work that I've put in. So yeah, that's where I am with that. The yarn that I'm using for this is from Norway. Do I have a label in here? That's the big question. I do. This is Hillesvåg Sølje. I love pronouncing it. So it's a Norwegian yarn. It's a fingering weight. The colorway is 2136. And I will say it's a bit. I love the yarn. It's got a bit of a like a sheen to it. It's a beautiful woolly yarn. It's definitely not soft. I think it will soften up with wear over time. But it's not a super soft yarn. But I just think it works beautifully with this pattern, and once I do finish it, it's going to be a very practical knit that I think I will wear a lot. So yeah, that's where I am with this. Yeah, sorry, my light keeps on changing. It's a bit of a weird weather day today. So yeah. Next up, let's stay on the topic of garments. I am still working on my Robin sweater by Jose Paca. I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, check my project pages if you don't find it on Ravelry. And I'm of course knitting this out of my bright red yarn, which seems to be showing up a lot better today than it did last week. This yarn is a Madeline Tosh Merino Light. Again, no label. What's happened to me? I'm a terrible podcaster. But it's called Blood Runs Cold, I believe. I'm trying to see. I know I have the label somewhere. I know I do. It's just buried under a lot of crap. And now I'm swearing at the podcast. I'm just going to move on. Sorry. Anyways, so I talked about this at length last week, so I'm not going to go into detail today, but it's essentially a modified version of the Robin sweater. And it is blowing out the camera now, but this is what it looks like. Since last week, I have taken out the lifeline. You can still kind of see where it was, but I'm hoping that will block out. And you can see I'm still working on the body. So I've made, I don't know, maybe 3 inches of progress, not a whole ton, because I've been more focused on getting my Ernest cardigan finished. But it's still working up pretty fast, considering I'm not putting a huge priority on this, and I still love it. Can't wait to have this done. At some point I need to decide if I want this to be a slightly cropped sweater. I think that could look really, really nice. I would probably do like a high-low hem, which I think is even in the pattern. And yeah, so that's where we are on that. I can probably never wear this sweater on the podcast because the camera will just blow out. But yeah, that's where we are with that. Talking about sweaters, maybe I should talk about the sweater that I'm wearing as well. This is the No Frills sweater by Petite Knit that I'm wearing today. It's usually knit in a combination of a mohair silk yarn and another 4-ply yarn. I knit mine out of some yarn that I got from La Droguerie in France, in Nice to be exact, which was a mix of all kinds of funky fibers, so it came already fuzzy like that. I'm not sure what's in it. I think there was like wool and silk and mohair and angora and something else. And yeah, I wear this sweater quite a lot. I really like it. Obviously the color is very easy to wear, so I tend to wear this when I don't want to like look super knitty, if that makes sense. So I can wear this for work. I can wear this out even with like a nice blouse underneath, and it looks kind of a little bit more elegant than some of my other knits, so I do wear it quite a lot. All right, one last work in progress that I'm going to show you today is a new cast on, because Caroline, who has the Knitting Vicariously podcast, I'm sure you know her, she is once again hosting the Blame Dunder Knit Along, where you can just cast on recklessly and blame her, which is amazing. And the knit along started right on this long weekend here in Bavaria. So I decided to do exactly what Carolyn said and cast on. And the yarn that I chose, which is in 2 messy balls because my ball winder had some issues. How beautiful is this freaking yarn? And yeah, I realize my light is changing by the second. I will try to hurry up. This is yarn by Das Mondschaf, who is Sabrina, in her Pegasus base, which is her sock base, and the colorway is called Butterfly Effect. I just love this yarn. I got this together with last year's Christmas colorway last year as a Christmas gift to myself. I haven't knit the sweater that I'm planning to do with her Christmas colorway, but at least I'm working with the single skein of sock yarn that I got with it. And originally I was just going to do a plain sock, but then in the last second I decided to put a pattern on it. So how cool do these look? I mean, I like my knits, but I'm rarely as proud as I am of this, because how cool is this pattern and yarn combination? These are the Sunset Solstice or Solstice Sunset socks by Flock Fiber. Again, show notes, you will find them. Sorry, I'm a terrible podcaster today and forgetting all the names and all the things. It's a really fun slip stitch pattern. I bought this on a whim when it came out a while ago, and I'm trying to knit through the sock patterns that I have in my library, because either I've bought them or people have gifted them to me and I haven't really knit them yet. And this was just one of those instances, and oh my gosh, how fun do these look. I think it's really hard to find good sock patterns for speckly yarn, but the slip stitches with the yarn, oh my gosh, it just looks amazing, doesn't it? So I'm just obviously doing the pattern on the front and then the plain is back, and you can see the socks are quite different because I'm knitting them 2 at a time and I'm starting from opposite sides of the skein. So these are kind of like fraternal twin socks. I love them so much. You will notice obviously that I'm knitting them toe up, which is new for me, but I do really like knitting 2 at a time socks, and when you do them cuff down, you pretty much are forced to cast them on separately, and which is just an extra step that I'm too lazy to do. But if you knit them toe up, you can just do like the magic cast on one needle for both socks, and you can just basically start knitting 2 at a time from the get-go. So I'm really enjoying that aspect at the moment, and yeah. So that's what I cast on yesterday, and I'm just very, very, very excited about this. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been working on. I've still been working on a secret project, which I still can't show you, but it will be revealed one day, and I'm almost done with it, which is good. So I will have more stuff to show you in the future instead of just telling you about this secret project, which I'm working on. All right, that's it in terms of my works in progress for today. I do have some more works in progress, but none that I've worked on. Such is life. Should we do the socks right now? Let's do the socks right now before the light gets worse, and it will just be a longer episode. So if you don't remember, or if you don't know, I used to bring out socks that I've washed and worn and all of that every now and then, and just tell you guys about how the yarn has behaved, how they're looking, and all of that. So since I just did a load of sock laundry, I just grabbed a couple of pairs off the rack. I may have shown some of these before, I may not have, I'm not sure. Also, I don't have a million sock blockers, so you're just going to see them as they are, because I mean, I'm not here to make things look pretty. I'm here to maybe show you some useful things about what you're knitting with. Yeah, so let's just get started. And as with all the things that I talk about, once again, reminder, I'm not being sponsored or paid to show anything, say anything, do anything. These are just my personal opinions. Yours may be different. It's all just my experience. In terms of all of my socks, I wash them in the machine. Yes, I know, sacrilege. You're not supposed to do that, but I do it. I wash my socks in the machine on like a 30 or sometimes even 40-degree cycle, even though they don't take 40 degrees so well. So I should really stick with 30-degree wash in the washing machine with just normal laundry detergent. And I kind of turn down the spinning setting to like 600 or 800, so they just don't get thrown around too much. And then I just hang them outside to dry. Where should we start? I've brought out my two pairs of socks that I've knit with Amy's yarn, Amy, who is Stranded Dye Works, and I thought it was quite interesting because one of these pairs, this one is her Flamingo Legs colorway. This is knit on her Superwash Merino nylon base. And the other pair is in her Bat Cave colorway, and this is on her MCN base. So this has cashmere. And I just thought it was interesting to compare these two because obviously they're different bases. Cashmere is supposed to wear a little bit worse because it's just a softer fiber. So yeah, both of these look pretty good. I will say that the Flamingo Legs, the colors have faded noticeably, but these are some of my favorite socks, so I have worn and washed them quite a lot. I do find that most of my socks fade over time. Some don't, but most of them do. And this is the sort of like, it's not labeled as a high twist yarn, but it's the sort of relatively high twist merino nylon base, which I really like it because it creates a really nice fabric, and you can see even now the stitches are really still pretty good. The only thing that I like I said, don't really like is the fact that the colors have changed, but even on the heels, stitched in the definition, everything is still perfect. When you take the MCN socks, and I don't knit MCN a ton, but I think it still has worn pretty well. You can definitely see they're a little bit more fuzzy. I'm not sure if you can tell. Around the toe, there's a bit of like a fuzz just on top of the entire sock. There's a couple of pills, but all in all, I think still these are doing pretty well. And again, I've worn these quite a lot. There's a couple of pills, but all in all, I'm very happy with these. So I feel like with MCN bases especially, they just differ so much. Some MCN yarns, they just go very pilly very soon, and some don't. So I'm very happy with these. Next up, I brought out another comparison, and that is Hedgehog Fibers yarns. So you know that unlike many people, I love knitting socks out of Hedgehog Fibers sock base, which is a 90% merino, 10% nylon base, whereas most people will tell you that for socks you should really use their twist base, which is a BFL high twist nylon base. And I will say, contrary to most people, I really love the socks that I got from my sock base. So this is a 90% merino, 10% nylon. And for me, these socks wear so well. They're probably my favorite socks I have. It's a relatively thin, sometimes splitty yarn, but for me, I wear these socks so much, and they just create this almost like a store-bought fabric, and I really, really like it. And yeah, you can pretty much virtually see no pills, no changes in this sock, and this is one of my most worn socks. Yes, the colors, they do fade over the time. I mean, probably also because of the way that I wash them, but I really, really like it. Which is great because I have a ton of this yarn in my stash. And then this is the famous twist base, which is a BFL and nylon high twist. This is what you're supposed to use for socks, according to a lot of people. And I don't like it as much. I don't like knitting with it as much. And I mean, they may be holding up a little bit better, but they just have this fuzz all over the sock. It's not a bad fuzz, there's nothing wrong with them, but it's definitely there, and I'm pretty specific in terms of how I want my socks to look, and I don't know. These are much newer than the other ones, and in terms of the fabric, you can see the difference, I think. I definitely prefer this one. So I just thought that was so interesting to have like a side-by-side comparison. Yeah, I would use both, but I just think it's so interesting because sometimes BFL gets a really great rap for socks. And I do like BFL, but I don't like BFL as much as everyone else seems to. And there are definitely like ups and downs for everything. I think both of these will probably last a very long time, which is more surprising that in this space. I mean, you would expect the BFL to last a long time considering it's a high twist yarn. You wouldn't really, or I wouldn't really expect a 90% merino yarn to last very long, but I've never had any issues with this yarn. So yeah, that is that. Next up, I brought a pair of socks that used to be mine, are now Kai's, because I just one day walked into the kitchen and there he was wearing my socks. And ever since then, they're his, and they fit him pretty well actually. I would never have gotten away with knitting these for him because there's like purple in it, and he would never let me knit like purple pinky socks for him, but he has since adopted them and he loves them. This is an 80/20 merino nylon base by She Bought Garnet, and I think you know my love affair with her yarns. I used to knit with them quite a lot. I think it's called her soft sock base, and you should see most of Kai's socks. They look so terrible because he's so rough on them. He just thrashes through them. But for some reason, these are just holding up really well. So these are definitely some of his favorite socks, and he's worn them for a long time. So there's like a little bit of wear on them, but I think really they're looking quite good. So I'm really surprised sometimes how some socks, he will wear them 2 times, and if he would let them, I would throw them out. And then other pairs he wears for ages and ages, and they just look really nice. This is probably the nicest pair that he has, but still, very impressive. And then last but not least, I brought out another example of MCN socks, and this is more like my usual experience with MCN yarn, which is, I've worn these like 2 or 3 times, and I don't know. They're super pilly. This is the MCN sock yarn, merino cashmere nylon from Lang Yarns, I believe. And it's some Hermione's Everyday socks. And there's even like just like fluff on the inside that just comes out of the sock. And basically it does the same thing on the outside. It's just, it doesn't really felt. They are really soft. So they're definitely wearable, but you can just see there's just like a ton of pilling, and then on the other one as well. And this one actually, now that I'm looking at it, it has felted quite badly at the bottom as well. So this is not the fault of the yarn. I mean, you just need to know what you're getting yourself into when you're buying certain yarns. So an MCN blend, I mean, it would be great if you just use them for bed socks, or if you don't mind. I mean, they're incredibly soft to wear. If you don't mind them looking like this, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think you just need to be kind of aware of what you're buying. And if you're happy with the consequences, that's totally fine. Like, these are incredibly soft. But I just think it's so interesting how, for example, this is the same blend as my Batcave socks by Stranded, and they turned out completely different. So yeah, there's a little bit of sock history for you there. And then the most interesting thing I've left to the end. You may remember these socks, which I knit quite recently. This is Retrosario Mondim sock yarn. Is it Rosa Pomar? I'm not sure. It seems to have different names. And what's interesting about this is that this is a non-superwash sock yarn. So this is from Portugal. And it's some blueberry waffle socks. And And what did I do? I decided I want to see if this is really non-superwash. So I just threw it in the washing machine. I know some of you are probably screaming at me right now, but guess what? They came out just fine. So I'm not telling you to wash your non-superwash things in the washing machine, because don't trust me, I will not be blamed if it goes wrong. I'm not taking on that responsibility for you. You can make your own choices, and maybe I will throw them in the washing machine again and they will felt. But I've washed them in the washing machine, 30 or 40 degree wash, and look, they're perfectly fine. Like, they have not changed one bit. They're exactly the same as before. They didn't used to be super soft. They're still not super soft. But besides that, they're just fine. So how interesting is that? Because I didn't buy that yarn for a while, because while I love the idea of non-superwash yarns and I love using those yarns, especially for garments and all of that, I was like, I'm not going to start hand washing my socks. So yes, this could have gone either way. This could have gone terribly wrong, but it didn't. And I just thought, that is so interesting, right? Have you used this yarn and washed it in the machine? Let me know if you have, because I would be really interested to know how it wears long term. I actually have some of the yarn from when I was knitting with it here, and you can tell it looks exactly the same. The colors haven't changed. How cool is that? So I just thought that was incredibly interesting. Let me know if you like this sort of content, because I have a lot more socks to show you. And I've also thought about, I have a lot of sweaters that I wear and that are now starting to see the first signs of wear. So if you would like those sort of videos in the future, do definitely let me know. And I'm not making any promises, but it would be good to know. And I just, beyond all these socks, I found the label for my Madeline Tosh red yarn for my sweater. So I can now show it to you and we'll have that completed. How good is that? All right, that's it for the Nitty content. So now I'm just going to waffle on for a little bit longer about what's been happening, and then I will sign off. So if you don't want to stick around for that, thank you so much for watching. I will see you very soon. Bye. And if you do want to stick around, welcome back. What's been happening? Essentially a lot of work. My life is so boring right now. I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, it tends to kind of be the same pretty much all the time. But like I said in the beginning of the episode, we're having a long weekend, which is amazing. And we decided to just stay at home and do a lot of like cozy autumnal things around the house. And what did we do yesterday? Oh, yesterday I went to one of my favorite places in Munich to have some lunch. We went out for a little bit of coffee today. More importantly, we booked our next trip, our next holiday, which will be in February. I will tell you more about that closer to the time, but I'm just so excited about that because work and a lot of things have been a little bit tough, and we just had this idea of going on a holiday next year and having something to look forward to now that it's starting to like get cold and stressful and like all of that. So we bit the bullet yesterday and booked our holiday, and I'm just so excited about that. And today we decided to be grown-ups and actually bought ourselves a suitcase, because we kind of realized, well, now we're like old, we're married, like all these things. Maybe we're able to buy ourselves a suitcase rather than every single time we go away going around and driving to my parents' house to borrow their suitcase that they got when they got married like 27 years ago. So exciting grown-up plans, like buying things like suitcases and doing like apartment stuff. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I want to do a ton of knitting as I usually do. So yeah, besides that, it's been really autumnal. Actually, it's been very, very cold. We had like 4 degrees last Thursday during the day, and that was freezing. Like, I had my hat on, and I am wearing my what's it called, the Stephen West shawl, Mild Magic, I think, Mild Magic shawl. I'm wearing that all the time, And I was still cold because I decided I actually would have needed mittens. So the knitwear season is definitely upon us. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed this episode. I feel like it was a little bit all over the place. Sometimes it really annoys me when I get stuff wrong and I forget things and my English isn't like perfect, but we'll just have to deal, and I'm sure it's not as bad as I think it is. So yeah, that is that. And also, no one is being forced to watch this, so yeah. Oh well, thank you so much for being there for this episode. I hope you have a lovely weekend. I hope you have a lot of knitting things to keep you happy. And until I see you again, thank you so much. Happy knitting. Bye.